So we're on the 10th canto, 3rd chapter. This is the 7th day that we're discussing the 3rd chapter, the birth of Lord Krishna. And we're up to the 33rd verse. We're in the middle of the purport. So today Madhav Gopal hasn't come for reading. It's a Ekadasi. ठीक है, अभी आइए.
As stated in Bhagavad Gita 13.9, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. Birth, death, old age and disease are certainly the primary distresses of the material world. People are trying to control birth, but they are not able to control death. And if one cannot control death, one cannot control birth either. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.33 purport.
So two things are sure in life, that's birth and death, and in between we have old age and disease. And Krishna's with us in every stage. We just have to recognize Him and turn to Him. So as for controlling birth, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said something very beautiful.
While still bound up tightly in the unbearable confines of my mother's home, O Lord, you once revealed yourself before me. Appearing only briefly, you then abandoned this poor servant of yours. In that moment I thought, after my birth I will worship you. But alas, after taking birth I fell into the entangling network of worldly illusions. Thus I possessed not even a drop of true knowledge.
So this human birth is so rare, and according to Sri, because we have that opportunity in human life to fully worship the Supreme Lord, but immediately at the time of birth we become entangled in this network of illusion. So therefore we have to associate with devotees so that we can hear about the Lord and be reminded of His devotional service.
My dear servants, please bring to me only those sinful persons who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name and pieties of Krishna, whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once, and those whose heads do not bow down even once before Lord Krishna. Send me those who do not perform their duties toward Vishnu, which are the only duties in human life. Please bring me all such fools and rascals. Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.29.
This is spoken by Yamaraj to his servants, the Yamadutas. When the Yamadutas were defeated by the Vishnu Dutas, they came and asked. They were confused. They always thought that Yamaraj was the supreme. How is it that they were able to snatch this soul back from the Yamadutas? So this is how to conquer death. If we can conquer death by always chanting the holy names and qualities of Krishna and remembering His lotus feet, and bowing down before Him, then Yamaraj has given this order to the Yamadutas, don't go near such devotees. So if we want to conquer death, we have to remember Krishna, and if we want to be successful at the time of birth, we also have to remember Krishna and try to serve Him throughout this lifetime.
According to Vedic civilization, procreation should not be contrary to religious principles, and then the birth rate will be controlled, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.11. Dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi. Sex is not contrary to religious principles, is a representation of the Supreme Lord. People should be educated in how to give birth to good children through samskaras. beginning with the Garbhadhan Sanskar. Birth should not be controlled by artificial means, but this will lead to benefits.
So according to the Manusmriti, there are 40 sanskars we should be executing in human life. There's 16 made ones and 10 that the Vaishnavas follow. And just as when we're reading this 10th canto, we're starting with the conception of the Lord, how he entered into the heart of Vasudeva, then was transferred to Devaki, then how he appeared. So that's also where these sanskars begin. The first sanskar in a living entity's life, in human birth, is Garbhadhan sanskara. And that even before conception, before the child is even conceived by the mother and the father, this sanskar is performed so that a pure soul will be attracted to the womb of the mother. And then after that, there's so many different sanskars, and this is human life. By performing these sanskars, sanskar means purification. Even when you clean a coconut, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, just taking the hair and the shell off of the coconut, that's also called sanskar. So we have impurities, and these samskars throughout our lifetime purify us. And that first one is even before we're conceived, this Garbhadhan sanskar, which is the beginning of human life.
One follows these principles, he automatically practices the whole principle. First, if one is spiritually educated, he knows that after regrets, offense, or various types of misery, one who is spiritually advanced does not indulge in uncontrolled sex. Therefore, instead of being forced to refrain from sex or refrain from giving birth to many children, people should spiritually educate. Then what control
So this is 2019 Indian states by population, and you can see in India the most populated state is Uttar Pradesh, 20 crore, and the estimation is about 1,500 people live per square kilometer. So we have the greatest opportunity to preach Krishna consciousness right where we are. Because it's possible because living right in it. So as devotees, it's our responsibility to help people understand the importance of Varnashram Dharma, specifically because, for instance, the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, they might perform 10 sanskars in their lifetime. Maybe. But Sudras, they'll only perform maximum 1 sanskar, and that's the Vivaha sanskar, marriage. And then after marriage comes the other sanskars, preparing to have children, things like that. So if we can at least help people understand the importance of these sanskars, that's natural birth control. Before in India, on the back of every single auto rickshaw was Hum Do Hamare Do. That was the mantra of India, Hum Do Hamare Do. Huh? They don't have that anymore. Because now there's so many abortions, they get to choose. One woman said, well, I already have 3 daughters. It's just like picking out a dress. I don't want any more daughters, so I'll just abort if I have a daughter. Now I want a son. So they don't have any concept of the sinful reaction of abortion and birth control, stopping the child from getting conceived artificially. This means if you engage in any of these activities, then next time after your death, you'll also be stopped from being able to take birth. You won't be able to see the light of day.
If one is determined to make spiritual advancement, he will not beget a child unless able to make that child a devotee. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.18, Pitana Sasyat, One should not become a father unless one is able to protect his child from mrityu, the path of birth and death. But where is their education about this? A responsible father never begets children like cats and dogs. Instead of being encouraged to adopt artificial means of birth control, people should be educated in Krishna consciousness, because only then will they understand their responsibility to their children. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.33 purport.
So this is a family portrait of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He had two great Vaishnavas in his family. Of course, we know Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and then his younger brother Lalit Prasad also. Though he was a Bhajananandi, he didn't preach actively as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he understood this concept that it says here, Pita na sasya, don't become your dependents. So with 14 children, and his daddy, he had 2 wives, one died and then the second wife, he was able to instill Krishna consciousness in his entire family, and therefore he was a successful grihastha and a pure Vaishnava.
One can beget children who will be devotees, which ought to turn aside from the path of birth and death. Mrityu samsara vartini, devotee line 1. There is no need of birth control. Rather, one should be encouraged to beget children. Artificial means of birth control have no value, whether one begets children or does not. A population of men who are like cats and dogs will never make human society happy. It is therefore necessary for people to be educated spiritually, so that instead of getting children like cats and dogs, they will undergo austerities to produce devotees. This will make their lives successful. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.33.
So this is the incarnation, Srila Rishabhadev, and he had 100 sons. Out of his 100 sons, the eldest was Bharat Maharaj, who became the king, the emperor of the world. And aside from Bharat Maharaj, 9 of his 100 sons became sannyasis, the Navayogendras. And then the other sons all followed their elder brother Bharat Maharaj in the Varnashram system as Kshatriyas. So Maharaj Rishabhadev, although his sons were all very well behaved and educated, he still instructed them because that was the duty of the father. And after instructing them, he enthroned his eldest son, Bharat, as the king, and then accepted the life of sannyas, or in his case, avadut. So this Varnashram system is the gradual process of giving up material desires and ending the process of birth and death by going through, according to your Varna, the different ashrams. So Maharaj Rishabhadev, he set the perfect example as a Kshatriya, and then each one of us, according to our guna and our karma, we fit into a particular place. Although it's bhaya, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's external. We also have a material body, and that material body has to be engaged properly. So that's the Varnashram system. And then internally, we can be engaged in devotional service with our body and our mind, and spiritually we can always be engaged in loving devotion to Krishna.
You control your senses and perform severe austerities by practicing the breathing exercise of yoga system. Both you and your husband could tolerate all the influences of material laws, rainy season, the onslaught of the wind, and the scorching heat of the sunshine. You also executed all religious principles. In this way you were able to cleanse your heart and control the influence of material law. In executing your austerity, you used to eat only the leaves of trees which fell to the ground. Then steady mind and controlled sex desire, you worship me, desiring some wonderful benediction from me. Krishna Book, Chapter 3.
So we heard yesterday that there are 3 stages of bhakti. Jnana, Jnanamayi, and then Kevala Bhakti, Rati, when it becomes pure love. So the Lord has heard the prayers of Vasudeva and Devaki, and now He's responding to them. And He's explaining to them, because conception was there, now He's appeared, His birth is there. Now, just as in a human, according to these sanskaras, at the Jata Karma, the astrologers come, they say what his previous birth was, what will happen in this birth, what's going to happen in the future. So now Krishna, as a supreme authority, He's explaining to Devaki and Vasudeva why He has appeared as their son. Because, just like with Arjuna, Krishna explained that we've had many, many births. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. So Devaki and Vasudeva, they couldn't remember that they had eternally been the father and mother of the Supreme Lord. So here, Vishnu is reminding them that previously you were Sutapa and Prishni. Sutapa was one of the sons of Brahma, and he was ordered by his father to produce progeny. And because we know Brahma's life is so long, so the son of Brahma also has a very long life. So out of that lifetime, for 10,000 celestial years, the husband and wife engaged in severe austerity so that they could have a pure child. And we'll see what type of child they ask for.
My dear father and mother, you endured rain, wind, strong sun, scorching heat and severe cold, suffering all sorts of inconvenience according to different seasons by practicing pranayama to control air within the body through yoga, and by eating only air and dry leaves fallen from the trees. You cleansed you from your minds all dirty things. In this way, desiring a benediction from me, you worship me with peaceful minds. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3, 34, 35.
So this is at the very beginning of the creation. They perform this tapasya together, husband and wife. Severe tapasya. For 12,000 years, the Lord said. So for us, that's unimaginable. Even in nowadays, with Prabhupada's reduced requirements for Garbhadan Sanskara, even if we're required to chant either 64 rounds or 50 rounds, we consider it such an austerity. But they performed very severe austerities, meditating constantly on the Supreme Lord for 12,000 years so that He would benedict them.
Vasudeva and Devaki did not obtain the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their son very easily, nor does the Supreme Godhead accept merely anyone as his father and mother. Here we can see how Vasudeva and Devaki obtained Krishna as their eternal son. In our own lives, we are meant to follow the principles indicated herewith for getting good children. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to get Krishna as his son, but at least one can get very good sons and daughters for the benefit of human society. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3, 34, 35 purport.
So, quite often, Srila Prabhupada, when he would be giving classes, before the class, of course, we always have kirtan, and the little children would take part in the kirtan. And little boys, like there was one little boy, the son of Bhagavan Das, Vaishnav Das, 2-year-old child. He was playing the kartals in perfect rhythm, and other children were dancing. This was at a different place, the dancing. It was spoken today here in the Bhagavatam class that Prabhupada gave. So Prabhupada explained that these children who are taking birth within ISKCON, they're not ordinary children. How can they dance at such a young age unless they hadn't practiced in their previous lifetime? And how could this little boy, Vaishnav Das, how could he know how to play the kartals at 2 years old in perfect rhythm? This is all from previous life. So the children who are taking birth in our Krishna Consciousness Society, they're not ordinary children. It means that they're getting Vaishnav mother and father and being born directly into the association of devotees so that they can pick up their devotional service where they left off in their previous life. So when Prabhupada established his first world headquarters, it was in Los Angeles. They got a big beautiful temple here, see that? And he named it New Dwarka because he wanted this place, New Dwarka, to be where the Grihastas set up a whole ideal community of families so that the children are born and the husbands and the wives are all engaged in pure Krishna consciousness together. And you see this picture was taken way back in the 70s. But already the devotees have produced so many beautiful Vaishnava children and they were engaged in so much activity, the spiritual sky incense and book distribution and deity worship. And truly it was becoming a perfect Krishna conscious society there in New Dwarka.
In the Bhagavad Gita it is said that if human beings do not follow the spiritual way of life, there will be an increase of Varna Sankar population begotten like cats and dogs, and the entire world will become like hell. Not practicing Krishna consciousness but simply encouraging artificial means to check the population will be futile. The population will increase and it will consist of Varna Sankara, unwanted progeny. It is better to teach people how to beget children not like hogs and dogs but in controlled life. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3, 34, 35 purport.
So you'll see here in India, anyone who's gone out of India, there's not so much population. If you go to the European countries, even if you go to America, there's so much vacant land, so much. And there are a lot of trees, there's a lot of wild vegetation, because there aren't that many people. But here in India, there's so many people taking birth. That's because it's Bharatvarsha, because they get the opportunity from birth to hear Krishna's name, to hear Rama's name. It's a very auspicious birth. But unfortunately, because the people aren't observing the sanskaras, particularly Garbhadan sanskara, a lot of the people being born are, as Prabhupada is speaking here, Varna Sankara. Varna Sankara means they're unwanted progeny, that by accident they're being born. So many children, even in Bihar, there's competition going on. Who can have most number of children? Some have 19 children, some have 12 children. But who's going to maintain them all? Krishna of course maintains all the living entities. But when there's excess of this Varna Sankara, you see here the facility is there, but there are just too many people to take advantage of the facilities. And therefore it's called overpopulation. It's not actually overpopulation, but it's just the wrong type of population that's being produced because of not following Garbhadan Sanskara.
Human life is meant not for becoming a hog or a dog, but for tapodivyam. Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.1. Transcendental austerity. Everyone should be taught to undergo austerity, tapasya. Although it may not be possible to undergo tapasya like that of Prishni and Sutapa, the Shastra has given an opportunity for method of tapasya, very easy to perform, the Sankirtan movement. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3, 34, 35 quote.
So this is what Srila Prabhupada was trying to institute in ISKCON, the Varnashram system. He set up Gurukulas so that the children from age 5 to 15 could undergo tapasya. They could at least learn about brahmacharya and rising early, taking bath, chanting japa, engaged in studies, going on sankirtan. All of these forms of tapasya, they're not difficult. They're actually joyful for a child. And then when they're adults and they plan to marry and go on with their life, they're already accustomed to austerity, so they don't fall down so dramatically as one who's not accustomed to living an austere life. And we found this with the Gurukula students. Those who underwent tapasya in their childhood, even in their adulthood, they were easily able to join the military, get jobs, do all types of work in the outside world because they were trained in tapasya in their early life. So for those of us who didn't have the opportunity to attend Gurukula in childhood, that's most of the devotees who join ISKCON after their education, we have the opportunity to embrace tapasya in the form of Sankirtan. We go out, we chant the holy names, we invite people to the temples. Now, why do we have temples? Because if we didn't have temples, then nobody would come to hear the philosophy. So Prabhupada, along with Bhagavad Vidhi, he also established the Pancharatriki Vidhi. Bhagavad Vidhi is the most important, the giving of knowledge through the books, the chanting of Hare Krishna, but he also established the temples so that our lives would become purified through deity worship. So the two go along together. The Bhagavad Vidhi in the form of books, Sankirtan, preaching, and then Pancharatriki Vidhi in the form of purification by deity worship in the temples. And then we have places for the people to come to hear the philosophy very comfortably in temples.
One cannot expect to undergo tapasya to get Krishna as one's child. Yet simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Kirtana Deva Krishnasya, Srimad Bhagavatam 12.351, one can become so pure that one becomes free from all contamination of this material world. Consciousness movement, therefore, is teaching people not to adopt artificial means of happiness, but to take the real path of happiness as prescribed in the Shastra, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and become perfect in every aspect of material existence. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.34.35.
Now from here, Srila Prabhupada is going into a very important aspect, and that is, we can't expect to perform so much tapasya to implore the Lord to become our son. Nor is the Lord very interested in becoming our son. But because He likes to satisfy the desires of devotees, He become purified and come back to our original, eternal service in the spiritual world where we are serving Him. Not that He has come on our demand to satisfy our desires here in the material world. So there's a huge ocean of difference between begging the Lord to come as your son and becoming
austerities for 12,000 years by the calculation of the demigods. During that time your mind was always absorbed in me. Krishna book chapter 3. Thus you spend 12,000 celestial years performing difficult activities of tapasya in consciousness of me, Krishna consciousness. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.36. When you were executing in devotional service and always thinking of me within your heart, I was very much pleased with you. O sinless mother, your heart therefore always pure. At that time also I appeared before you in this form just to fulfill your desire. And I asked you to ask whatever you desired. At that time you wished to have me born as your son. Although you saw me personally, instead of asking for your complete liberation from material bondage under the influence of my energy, you asked me to become your son. Krishna book chapter 3.
So this is one of the sons of Brahma, and Brahma has an order from the Supreme Lord Himself to populate the universe. So Brahma has many sons to help him with this. And one of his sons, Sutapa, he wanted to have the Lord Himself as his son. Now this is another son of Lord Brahma, of Lord Brahma, Kardama Muni. He wanted to also satisfy the wishes of his father by creating progeny. So he also did meditation and tapasya, just like his brother Sutapa. And when the Lord appeared, again, just like Sutapa, instead of asking for liberation from this material world, he asked to have a wife so that they could produce children. So these seem to be material desires. Because if one wants a wife, they just have to worship Uma. Why bother the Supreme Lord with so much tapasya, calling him down from the spiritual world just to ask him for a wife? But there's a reason for that, and that's because Krishna says, under the influence of my energy, you asked me to become your son. So when the Lord appears, because he's appearing as if he were a human being, and human beings have mothers and fathers. So he also needs a mother and father when he comes to the earthly planet. So the Lord's Devamaya, instead of inquiring begging from the Lord that they want liberation to go back to the spiritual world, in order to take part in the Lord's pastimes here in the material world, they asked him if he would become their son.
O sinless Mother Devaki, after the expiry of 12,000 celestial years, in which you constantly contemplated me within the core of your heart with great faith, divine form as Krishna, to ask you to take from me the benediction you desired. You then expressed your desire to have a son exactly like me. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:3, 37, 38.
So why, after so much tapasya, after so much hardship, 12,000 years, why not just go back to the spiritual world? Why want to stay here in the material world? So this is the Lord's plan, because he wanted that mother and father. And because they had become so purified, and because they were in that jnana stage of understanding the Supreme Lord, they had attained that stage, and they were very attracted to the Supreme Lord. So if they were going to have a child, they only wanted the Supreme Lord to become their child.
12,000 years on the celestial planets is not a very long time for those who live in the upper planetary system, although it may be a very long for those who live on this planet. Sutapa was the son of Brahma, and as we have already understood from Bhagavad Gita 8.17, one day of Brahma equals many millions of years according to our calculation. Sahasrayuga paryantam aharyat brahmano viduhu. We should be careful to understand that to get Krishna as one's son, one must undergo such great austerities. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3, 37, 38 purport.
So, in this section of the third chapter, Prabhupada gives some different options for the devotees. One is they can perform very severe tapasya and beg from the Lord that he become their child. The other is they can chant Hare Krishna and go back to Godhead. And the other is, if they can't perform such severe tapasya, they can at least pray to the Lord that the children that they conceive can also be devotees. So we have similar category we fit into. Over and above everything, Srila Prabhupada is recommending to us to chant Hare Krishna and go back to God.
If we want to get the Supreme Personality of Godhead to become one of us in this material world, this requires great penance. But if you want to go back to Krishna, Tattva deham punarjanma naiti mameti surjana, Bhagavad Gita 4.9, we need only understand him and love him. Through love only we can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore declared, Prema pumartho mahan. Love of Godhead is highest achievement for anyone. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3, 37, 38 purport.
Desire to have grandchildren and expand with land and animals and wealth and things like that, let those material desires become purified by directing everything to Krishna, just as we see in the example of Kardama Muni and Sutapa. But if we really want the perfection of life, Prema Pumarto Man, that is over and above, give up our material desires and simply come to that state
spiritual activities on the basis of full knowledge, gradually they developed love for the Supreme Personality of God. And when this love was mature, God appeared as Vishnu. Although Devaki then requested him to assume the form of Krishna, to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead more, we want a form of Lord like Krishna or Rama. We can engage in loving transaction with Krishna as 38th purport.
So because Devaki and Vasudeva, in that first birth, Sutapa and Prishni, they performed so much severe tapasya, the Lord was pleased. He satisfied their desire. Not only once, but 3 times he became their son. This 3rd time, the Lord guarantees this will be the last time. After this, you will go back to the spiritual world. But Vasudeva and Devaki, even in this lifetime, had to undergo so much severe tapasya just to get Krishna and Balaram as their sons. They had to stay in the prison house. They missed all of the childhood pastimes of the Lord, but still they remained completely devoted to Krishna in love, because they had already attained that stage of pure love, and they were just waiting till they could engage in pastimes with him here in the material world.
In this age, we are all fallen, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to bestow upon us love of Godhead directly. This was appreciated by associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Goswami said, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Naha. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 19.53. In this verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described as Mahavadanya, the most magnificent of charity purport.
So this is what we heard yesterday, that Sri Krishna, he was contemplating that I haven't come to the material world for a long time. It's time for me to appear now and teach pure devotional service. And that way he would start the Nama Sankirtan party. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so merciful. He gave up everything just to begin Sankirtan movement. He gave up his beautiful young wife, his widowed mother. He gave up all of his associates in Navadvip just so that he could preach Krishna consciousness all over India at the time and eventually all over the world. He was so merciful that even the Mayavadis, who were the most offensive, they tried to deny the very existence of the Lord. They're as bad as atheists because they don't understand the concept that the Lord is a person. Even they were liberated by this chanting of Hare Krishna when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Prakashananda Saraswati, and all of the disciples chanted Hare Krishna and became liberated through the holy name.
We should therefore take advantage of the benediction given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and when by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we are cleansed of all dirty things, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, CC Antya 20.12, we shall be able to understand very easily that Krishna is the only object of love. Kirtana Deva Krishna se Mukta Sangha Param Rajet, Srimad Bhagavatam 12.351. Therefore, one need not undergo severe penances for many thousands of years. One need only learn how to love Krishna and be always engaged in his service. Sevan Mukhe Jivvadao Swayameva Swaratyata. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.234. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.37.38 purport.
Now Krishna is busy in the spiritual world, engaged in his loving pastimes with his devotees. And here in the material world we might have a desire. So we have to wait. We have to perform tapasya, waiting until the Lord recognizes us by our meditation on him, our love for him. Then he gives us a little recognition. He asks us, what do we want? Then we demand something from the Lord, and because we're the Lord's devotee, he gives that benediction. But this is not the Lord's job to fulfill the desires of the devotees. it's our responsibility, it's our constitutional position to fulfill the desires of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, a pure devotee is only thinking how he can serve the Lord, not what he can get from the Lord. So this is just the opposite consciousness. They're both devotees, but one is thinking what benediction he can take from the Lord, and the other is thinking in pure love, how can I serve the Lord? So here we're seeing the two different types of, though they're both devotees, two different types of mentality.
Then one can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. Instead of bringing the Lord here for some material purpose, to have a son or whatever else, if we go back home, back to Godhead, our real relationship with the Lord is revealed, and we eternally engage in our eternal relationship. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:37-38 purport.
So after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent several years traveling and preaching, he then entered his, after the Madhya Lila, he entered his Antya Lila, where he revealed to the devotees how one enters into the spiritual world through this chanting of Hare Krishna. So in trance, while chanting, Lord Chaitanya would actually be in the spiritual world. For instance, the gopis asked him to pick flowers as Radha and Krishna entered into a cave at Govardhan Hill to engage in pastimes together. So he was already there in the spiritual world. He would go back and forth between the two places so that he was teaching devotees what the perfection of spiritual life is. Not to stay here and make demands from the Lord, but to re-enter the spiritual world and go back into our eternal position as the Lord's loving servant.
By chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we gradually develop our eternal relationship with the Supreme Person and thus attain the perfection called Swarupa Siddhi. We should take advantage of this benediction and go back home, back to Godhead. Shri Narottam Das Thakur has therefore sung Patita Pavana Hetu Tavavatara. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as an incarnation to deliver all fallen souls like us and directly bestow upon us love of Godhead. We must take advantage of this great benediction of great personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:3-37-30 purport.
So actually, although this Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, we have the topmost opportunity to become servants of the Lord through the chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. There's no question of our performing severe tapasya, yoga, or any of the other recommendations that even Arjuna couldn't perform 5,000 years ago. But by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, if we simply take seriously the pure chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and very carefully guard against offenses, we can attain the topmost perfection of spiritual life and return to the spiritual.
Selected his mother and father, namely Prishni and Tsupa, specifically to appear in the material world. Whenever the Lord comes as human being, he must have someone as mother and father. So he selected Prishni and Sutapa perpetually as his mother and father. And on account of this, both Prishni and Sutapa could not ask the Lord for liberation. Liberation is not so important as the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Krishna Book, Chapter 3.
So there are some devotees who remain. It's also Nitya Lila, because in the very beginning of these Krishna book readings we learned that when the Lord appears here, just like the sun, it rises, it goes to the meridian, and then it sets. But that doesn't mean that the sun has disappeared, it's just gone somewhere else. So the Lord also, the pastimes that he displays in the material world of his birth, his childhood pastimes, his Dwarka pastimes, and his conversation with Arjuna, these are also Nitya Lila, but they go on in the material world. So here in the material world, the Lord also has his Nitya Parishad, his eternal devotees who travel with him from universe to universe. And As we learned earlier, there are three types of devotees who take part in these pastimes. One is the Nitya Siddhas who come from the spiritual world with the Supreme Lord. The other is the demigods who come to assist the Lord in his pastimes. And the third is the aspiring sadhaks who have been promoted to take part in the Lord's pastimes in a particular universe wherever the Lord is appearing, so that they can associate with the Nitya Siddhas and prepare to go back to Godhead. So within the material world, for Sutapa and Prishni, they didn't ask for liberation because they were going to be the parents whenever the Supreme Lord appeared in his different incarnations.
The Lord could have awarded Prishni and Sutapa immediate liberation, but he preferred to keep them within this material world for his different appearances, as will be explained in the following verses. On receiving the benediction from the Lord to become his father and mother, both Prishni and Sutapa returned from the activities of austerity and lived as husband and wife in order to beget a child who was the Supreme Lord himself. Krishna Book, Chapter 3.
So after performing tapasya, they then left the forest, they returned to their homes, and they lived as religious grihastas.
Being husband and wife, but always sonless, you were attracted by sexual desires. By the influence of Devamaya, transcendental love, you wanted to have me as your son. Therefore you never desired to be liberated from this material world. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.39.
So is this a material desire or a spiritual desire? They wanted to have a son, but they wanted Krishna as their son. So that material desire became spiritualized because they were meditating on Krishna at all times. So even in their grihastha life, they meditated on Krishna, and Krishna agreed to become their son. It wasn't Krishna directly. Krishna never says that he personally appeared with all of his potencies and became their son. No, it was an expansion of the Lord, one of the Vishnu expansions called Prishni Garbha. That's the first expansion, the first incarnation.
Vasudeva and Devaki had been Dampati, husband and wife, since the time of Sutapa and Prishni. They wanted to remain husband and wife in order to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead as their son. This attachment came about by the influence of Devamaya. Loving Krishna as one's son is a Vedic principle. Vasudeva and Devaki never desired anything but to have the Lord as their son. Yet for this purpose they apparently wanted to live like ordinary grihasthas for sexual indulgence.
So you read also that Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi, before giving birth to their two sons, they had 8 daughters, and they all died. So when Sachi Devi had finally Vishwarup, by that time they were old. There was no question of having any more children after that. They were already too old. So Nimai was their only hope, and they were completely attached to him. They loved him so much. So Sachi Devi and Jagannath Mishra, if I remember correctly, they were Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, but Devaki and Vasudeva also wanted to take part in the pastimes. So they merged within their forms, and it was a combination of the two together, accepting Nimai as their child.
If one wants to return home to Godhead, one must give up such desires. This is possible only when one develops intense love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Nishkinjanasya bhagavad janonmukhasya param param jigimishu bhavasagarasya. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 11.8. If one wants to go back home to Godhead, one must be Nishkinjana, free from all material desires. Therefore, instead of desiring to have the Lord come here and become one's son, one should desire to become free from all material desires. Anya Bhilashita Shunyam. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11.
And his name was Prishni Garbha because he was the son of Prishni. He came from her womb. He was the form of the Lord who appeared to Dhruva Maharaj. And it was Dhruva Maharaj, from him we learn how even if one has material desires, if they approach the Lord and worship Him after taking initiation and receiving mantra and following the instructions of the spiritual master, simply by those activities, all of one's material desires become purified, and ultimately all one wants is the Supreme Lord and His devotional service. So this is how one becomes free from material desires, by chanting Hare Krishna for us and following the instructions of the spiritual master, and then whatever material desires are in our heart will become purified, and the Lord appears through the holy name, and then we simply desire to serve Him in love.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us in his Shastakam, na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatat bhaktira haitu gitvai. Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya 2029, Shri Shastakam 4. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. One should not ask the Lord to fulfill any materially tainted desires. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.339 purport.
And when Dhruva was insulted by his stepmother, he ran to his mother, Suniti, yes, and Suruchi was the stepmother. And she said, well, the only person who can help you is the Supreme Lord. I can't help you because I'm not favored by your father. So immediately Dhruva asked, so where is he? I want to find him. And his mother said, well, I heard that he lives in the forest. So immediately Dhruva left for the forest. And there, Narada Muni, taking compassion on this little child, recommended that he go home, stay with his mother, and when he grows up, he can come meditate on the Supreme Lord and meet him. But Dhruva wasn't interested. As a 5-year-old Kshatriya boy, he wanted to meet the Supreme Lord because he wanted a kingdom greater than his grandfather, who was Lord Brahma himself. Lord Brahma, his kingdom is the whole universe. So he told Narada Muni, I want to meet the Supreme Lord. If you can help me, please help me. If not, I'll continue on my way. So Narada Muni gave him a mantra by which he could meet the Supreme Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And Vasudev, the same Vasudev who's now appearing in front of Devaki and Vasudev, in the form of Prishnigarbha, appeared to Dhruva Maharaj to satisfy his desire. But at that time, Dhruva Maharaj's heart had become so purified by chanting the mantra given to him that he no longer had any desire. And still Prishnigarbha granted him his desire by giving him Dhruva Lok.
In due course of time, Prishni became pregnant and gave birth to a child. Krishna Book, Chapter 3. After you received that benediction and I disappeared, you engaged yourself in sex to have a son like me, and I fulfilled your desire. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.340.
So the type of conception and the birth of the incarnation Prishnigarbha is not on the same level as when Vasudeva and ultimately Lord Krishna appears in Mathura in the jail.
According to Sanskrit dictionary Amarkosh, sex life is also called Gramya Dharma, material desire. But in spiritual life, this Gramya Dharma, the material desire for sex, is not very much appreciated. If one has a tinge of attachment for material enjoyment of eating, sleeping, mating and defending, one is not Nishkinchana. But one really should be Nishkinchana. Therefore, one should be free from the desire to beget a child like Krishna by sexual enjoyment. This is indirectly hinted at in this verse. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.340 purport.
So here we're hearing about Mishrit Bhakti. They're devotees, obviously, they're pure devotees who prayed for the Lord to become their son, but they haven't yet come to the platform of only wanting to serve the Lord the way He wants them to serve them. They have their desires, and because living as dampati, husband and wife, they were attracted to one another. So they engaged in such activities whereby they conceived a child, and that child was the Supreme Lord. This was in Treta Yuga. So we certainly don't want to have to force the Lord to appear now in Kali Yuga when it's so degraded. So when we chant Hare Krishna, we should try to give up any desires, all desires, and simply desire to go back to the spiritual world.
The Lord spoke to Devaki and Vasudeva. At that time my name was Prishni Garbha, Krishna book chapter 3. Since I found no one else as highly elevated as you in simplicity and other qualities of good character, I appeared in this world as Prishni Garbha, or one who is celebrated as having taken birth from Prishni. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.41. Purport. In the Treta Yuga, the Lord appeared as Prishni Garbha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Prishni Garbha iti yoyam Treta Yugata Yugavataro Lakshate.
So that was Treta Yuga, and then Vasudeva appeared in Dwapara Yuga, and then Lord Chaitanya appeared in Kali Yuga.
Next millennium also you took birth as Aditi and Kashyapa. I became your child of the name Upendra. At that time my form was the known as Vamanadeva. In the next millennium I had appeared from the two of you who appeared as Mother and Aditi and my father Kashyapa. I was known as Upendra, and because of being a dwarf I was also known as Vamana. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.42.
This is also described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, I think the 8th canto, the appearance of Vamanadeva, and why Aditi wanted him to appear. She prayed here.
I gave you the benediction that I would take birth as your son 3 times. First time I was known as Prishni Garbha, born of Prishni and Sutapa. Next birth I was Upendra, born of Aditi and Kashyapa. Now for 3rd time I am born as Krishna from you, Devaki and Vasudeva. I appeared in this Vishnu form just to convince you that I am the same Supreme Personality of God and again taken birth. I could have appeared just like an ordinary man. In fact, you do not believe the fact
because Vasudeva and Devaki, through the 3 different processes of developing pure love, Jnana, Jnanamayi, and Rati, they had come to the stage of Rati, but they still had full knowledge of the opulences of the Lord. So therefore the Lord appeared as Vishnu first, so that they would recognize him to be the Supreme Lord, and then their love would manifest because they already loved the Lord in full knowledge of him. So he appeared that way first, and then he would transform into his Krishna form.
O Supremely Chaste Mother, I, the same personality, have now appeared of you both as your son for the 3rd time. Take my words as the truth. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.43. The Supreme Personality of Godhead chooses mother and father from whom to take birth again and again. The Lord took birth originally from Sutapa and Krishna. Another appearance is also because I took the form of the Holy Child so that eternal love.
So this is the Nitya Lila that the Supreme Lord manifests when it comes to execute the particular functions here in the material world. So here in the material world, these most fortunate souls, birds, Papa, Kashyapa, now Vasudeva, Devaki. They are the eternal parents of the Supreme Lord when he chooses to appear in the material world.
Srila Jiva Goswami says that the other forms were partial expansions of the Lord's original form, But because of the intense love developed by Vrishni and Sutapa, the Lord appeared from Devaki and Vasudeva in his full opulence as Sri Krishna. In this verse the Lord confirms, I am the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, but I appear in full opulence as Sri Krishna. This is the purport of the words Tenaiva Vapusha. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.43 purport.
So now, having performed so much tapasya over the lifetimes and having full knowledge of the Supreme Lord, they wanted to see the Lord in his Krishna form. And therefore they prayed to the Lord, now you please take the form of Krishna, because that form of Krishna is the most complete in all of his opulences, the most attractive, that's why his name is Krishna. And Vasudeva and Devaki were just longing to exchange loving reciprocation with that beautiful child Krishna.
When the Lord mentioned the birth of Vrishni Garbha, he did not say Tenaiva Vapusha, but he assured Devaki that in the third birth the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna had appeared, not as partial expansion. Vrishni Garbha and Vamana were partial expansions of Krishna, but in the third birth Krishna himself appeared. This is the explanation given in Shri Krishna Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.3.43.
So again, this is an example of Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanabhamam Prapadyante Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudolabhaha. So Sutapa and Prishni, now in the form of Devaki and Vasudeva, have attained pure love to the point where the Supreme Lord in all of his full opulences is appearing as their son. So truly their love and their affection and their devotion has attained